Let's get to read on all of this with General David Perkins, of course, a decorated four-star general, now a Fox News contributor. We value and appreciate both. General, first off, on all of these revelations, I mean, the president has been very clear about saying they're not concurrent. In other words, he isn't too worried about them because these revelations are dated. They don't all seem very dated now, and the reaction it's getting in real-world time from countries like Ukraine, concerned about the impression it's giving about the war, and China, what it is saying about its role in this war, you have to wonder. Your thoughts?
Yeah, so the problem with these intel leaks, and I know the last hour you had Mr. Radcliffe, former DNI, on, really is insight into the U.S.'s what we call sources and methods. It's not necessarily the information that gets leaked out, but it's the fact that our adversaries know that we know that information. And it gives them some insight into how we found out about that information, and it gives them insight into how to shut off that information. And that's really the long-term challenge with these intel leaks.
I'm wondering particularly China's reaction, General, when it said, we're not funding either side. We're not, I'm paraphrasing here, but we're not providing aid to the Russians. We're not doing so with the Ukrainians. But they came out with a blanket statement like that. Do you believe that?
I believe that China is the most opportunistic country in the world right now. And China is looking out for what is in China's interest. And what is in their interest is for their peer competitors, which Russia is at time, and clearly the U.S., anything that distracts Russia and the U.S., anything that reduces both of our capabilities, makes them relatively stronger. So from China's point of view, the longer this can go on in some aspect, yet be contained, but drain the resources of the U.S. and Russia is good for China.
I'm wondering what come of these revelations and what more we'll learn. And the fact that this happens fairly frequently in this country, almost nowhere in any other country. Maybe it could have something to do with the hundreds of thousands who have access to documents and information that maybe they shouldn't. But what do you think?
Yeah, Neil, that's a great point. Unfortunately, as you said recently, we've had many levels of mishandling of classified information, and that is not good, both in the short term and the long term. In the short term, again, you divulge sources and methods. In the long term, our allies will be hesitant to share information with us because they won't know maybe necessarily how well it will be guarded. In this case, with the young airman, I mean, it looks like he was just trying to impress his buddies in these various game rooms. And he had a security clearance, which means he had access to it. The thing that would concern me if I was in that organization is how did he get that information out of that secure facility? Because as it's been reported, he had pictures, he has some digital information, and the fact that he was able to get it out of that facility would be my major concern.
Yeah, and you know what worries me, General? This happens a lot. We're talking about classified documents in former presidents' hands, whether Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago or Joe Biden in his garage in Delaware or, an office elsewhere, the former vice president, itinerary plans of President Biden in Ireland that somehow dropped on a street in Dublin. It's happening so frequently, you got to wonder, is anyone keeping track of this stuff?
Well, and I think the level of awareness needs to be raised. And one of the ways you do that is that people have to deal with a penalty for mishandling classified information. And I think a lot of times people look at a piece of paper or information and go, well, everybody knows that, or it's not that big a secret. And like I said, it's not just the information, but it's the way that information was gathered and how we protect it. If that information gets out, that is very valuable information for our adversaries.
Do you think, General, I'm getting kind of into the weeds here on how this all came to light, but in the case of Jack Teixeira sharing this with a small group of people, gamers, on this Discord site, it might have been shared with his family members, or he might have told them about it as well. We don't know. But there's some culpability on their part if they share it with others.
Well, I think the first thing to do is to try to figure out how far this sharing occurred and who else saw it. I think for a lot of them, especially the folks that are minors, maybe really had no idea what they were looking at. But this kind of gets back to the point that if people understand when you have information like this, that if you mishandle it, there are consequences to be paid. And for 40 years, I've had a security clearance. In fact, I still have one now. And when there are reports of classified information on the internet, I don't look at it because I don't want it on my computer, and I am not allowed to look at it, even if it's open source.
All right. Well, that's wild. You were a 4-star general who's policing yourself. That's not a bad idea.
I have not looked at any of this stuff that's been out there.
Wow. So do you worry when a 21-year-old has it, and he first started getting the clearance to have this type of material when he was 19, and he is sharing it, we're told, with a group of gamers, some as young as 16? What do you think of that?
Yeah, I mean, clearly, the fact that he's young, has a security clearance, is actually not that unusual, because the military is a young person's game. And I've had plenty of young soldiers, security clearances in combat or whatever, and never had a security leak. But this does get back to them understanding that there are consequences for this. And examples like this need to sort of be case studies, and as they bring on new people, to say, these are the things you cannot do because see of the second and third order ramifications.
Wow. General, I always learn a lot. Thank you very, very much. General David Perkins, U.S. Army, 4-star general, Fox News contributor, self-policer when it comes to intelligence. What a crazy concept there.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.